What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Sikkim365.com's The Bearcast. I'm Craig Smoke, Sikkim365.com team reporter, also Sikkim365 radio host, weekdays 3 to 6, and joined as always by Grayson Grunhafer, director of broadcasting, also team and recruiting reporter for Sikkim365.com, as well as Armstrong Sims, doing all the magic behind the scenes to get us on the airwaves. Appreciate him as always. And here we are, another week, and another week with a lot to talk about, including a major storyline in the world of basketball. Also, some new things on the recruiting front, and, of course, Baylor's green and gold spring game has come and gone. So football is now over for the foreseeable future, and really all it will be with them is recruiting and the transfer portal and things like that until, about August. So football will remain a topic. It just won't have the activity that it's had here as of late with all the media sessions and things of that nature. But, we got about a 5-6 week run, so not bad to have a little bit of a break in some ways. But a lot to talk about this week. And Grayson, before we get into all the things going on, including a major story that I will touch on here in a second, how you doing this week, man?
I'm doing good, and obviously getting to watch some football was extremely fun. I mean, if you didn't have fun watching a little bit of football on Saturday, I don't know why you didn't, because I had a great time. I had a great time being out there, seeing the guys compete, seeing the improvements from the spring, and just kind of seeing where this team is at. So that was obviously a lot of fun to kind of get to see it with your own eyes. And, we've gotten to see some, but that was kind of more of a telling event, I would say. So that was great. Obviously, this week was filled with tons of drama outside of that, but a lot to cover, a lot to talk about, which is always fun for us, right?
Yeah, no doubt. We will get to the green and gold spring game and a lot of other things as well. But the big story this week, obviously, is something that, if you don't listen to Sikkim365.com, that's your prerogative. And hopefully you tune in on occasion if you're a Baylor fan. I don't see why you wouldn't. But if you were listening late last week, then this is a topic that we were discussing a couple of days before everybody else, quite frankly. And I got to give credit to Smokey, because when I kind of brushed it off initially when she appeared on Louisiana radio and it kind of cracked the door open for LSU, I wasn't paying attention to their head women's basketball coach, because why would I care? I mean, honestly, I'm not paying attention to LSU women's basketball. I look at the Lady Bears and maybe a couple of the teams around them, but outside of that, it's not of interest to me. So I had no idea LSU is, perhaps losing their head coach. And then when I learned, they are, most likely, and she's saying that on radio, I still was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it's Mulkey. I get it, the whole Louisiana tie and everything like that. But by about Tuesday night or Wednesday, Smokey had talked to some people, and you could tell that there was some, no pun intended, some smoke to this. And it wasn't just, people trying to drudge something up or create something or anything like that. This was based in some facts. And you peel back the layers more and you realize that there's some disagreements going on behind the scenes, and that maybe that's kind of been the case for a while, as far as just not always seeing eye to eye on everything, or, whatever the case may be. It seems like, there was some butting of the heads on some things. And so that adds to it when you realize that's going on. And you take into account she's been here for 20 plus years. She does obviously love Louisiana. Anybody who watched her press conference yesterday could see that. And if you can't see that, then you're just in full-on denial, because it was blatantly obvious how happy she was. And she hasn't looked that happy in like 5 years. So there's all this talk and no way it can happen. And I remember a couple people on Twitter chirping that, he's trying to start stuff. And it's like, we're not that outlet. Like, we don't ESPN first take this stuff. So yeah, there was some stuff to it. And by the time we were talking on Friday, I think a lot of people had started to realize, like, there's actually kind of maybe something to this. And yeah, by Friday, the time we left the airwaves, I was pretty confident that Kim was no longer going to be at Baylor. By Saturday, the rumors are really swirling, Grayson. And then, with all due respect to Nick Canizales, who is a really good dude, he's back in Beaumont now, former TV anchor here in Waco. He sent out some Kim propaganda on Saturday when he sent out she's just waiting on, she's waiting to make a decision. She'll have a decision by tomorrow. Her decision was already made, folks, on Saturday when that was sent out. If you remember that tweet or saw that tweet, that was her just talking, and it was already decided. And that became very clear in how quickly it all unfolded after that there really wasn't a decision. That was look at me for about another day or so, and she got that attention, and I'm not like bashing on her by saying that, but that was calculated. And sure enough, by Sunday, Kim Mulkey, LSU head basketball coach, which is kind of weird to say, although I've said it a bunch here in the last 48 hours or so. Still shocking. I know a lot of the fan base is coming to grips with it. Grayson, 3-time national champion, billion-time Big 12 champion, and just a winner. And the reason why Baylor sports was able to stay afloat there for a little while, not the reason solely why it's been successful here as of late, as you see with tennis, men's basketball, baseball's playing really well right now. I mean, you go on and on and on. But for whatever reasons, all of them, Kim Mulkey is now the head basketball coach at LSU, and her run with the Lady Bears ends after 20-plus years and 3 titles. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so, I mean, I was kind of in the same boat as you as far as timeline goes. I mean, when there is this much smoke, I mean, there just is fire. I mean, and you kind of saw it coming as the weekend progressed, even before that. In the middle of the week, really, I mean, Smokey and Colt and Ashley and Brian were kind of all on top of this storyline throughout the week. So got a lot of insight there, a lot of facts. And that was really, really cool to kind of unpack that whole situation. As far as Kim Mulkey goes, I mean, I would say when all of this talk was happening about her going to LSU, I was pretty in shock. I was also pretty disappointed in it, to be honest. I mean, she's been such a staple for Baylor athletics, such a fixture for, you know, kind of this athletic program and its trajectory. And so it was tough to see that, she might be leaving to LSU, but I got to say, once she left Baylor, I mean, it just is what it is. And you got to move on, and that's kind of where I was at. I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm not going to root for her at LSU. I don't care about LSU. And as far as Baylor goes, you know, Baylor just lost a great coach, but I don't think that in today's age of women's college basketball that a great coach can't necessarily be replaced. Now, I don't necessarily mean that they're going to have 3 national championships like Kim did, but you know, she had 23 years to win those 3 championships. So I'm curious if the next coach can come in and have some success. And I think Baylor women's basketball is a blue blood at this point. Kim's made it that way. And I think the next coach is going to be set up really well for success. And I trust Mac Rhodes to make this hire. I think they're going to find someone that's fantastic, and they're going to be able to continue the Lady Bears winning ways.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to put the program on the back burner in any way. I think that, you know, maybe the next head coach isn't making nearly $3 million per year. They will be if they win 3 national titles. I mean, I think Baylor's proven they'll pay for success. That's one thing you can say. Doesn't look like she took much of a raise to go to LSU. But again, I don't think it was just about money. I think it was about maybe money to a certain extent. But that was one of, like, you know, multiple things, disagreements on the arena. You know, some people have tried to all of a sudden paint that as like the reason. And it's like, okay, no, it's one of the reasons. It's not anything I think is a sole reason, unless you want to say it's just her wanting to go back home. I mean, if anything was just a reason why, then it was going back to Louisiana. And then number 2 might have been like the relationship with Mac. And then number 2B might have been the arena, and number 2C might have been some money, and number 2D, you know, but it was a lot of different things. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. It is what it is. You know, I know I would like to repeat what I said on the show yesterday, and it's like, hey, Lady Bears, diehards, I feel for you. I really do. It's not fun to support something so, you know, steadfastly and support it with your money and support it with your time and support it with your care and all of those things, which is what all sports fans, you know, do to a large extent, especially college fans, especially Baylor fans, you know, Big 12 fans. There's diehard core bases that support these programs, and man, not many were supported as well as the Lady Bears, you know, outside of just your typical football program. They had a very special audience and a very special connection to those that traveled to every tournament and did all that. And so that's rough for those folks, like, because I don't think many of them ever thought this day would come. So I do feel for those people who have been, you know, there, you know, in the stands for many of those games and those championships and traveled to watch the team in Oklahoma City and everywhere else. But hey, you got a lot of memories. You got to win, you got to be a part of this team winning some titles. And, there wasn't anything left for her to do, quite frankly, except for win national title number 4 and then national title number 5. And yeah, that's still a worthy goal. I mean, that's what Gino's doing at UConn and what, Saban's doing at Bama, and you wish you could be your Saban or your Gino, but it just wasn't in the cards, man. And, that happens. And I'm not in meltdown mode over this by any means. I think it kind of sucks that the end of an era is over when you know how successful that era was. But at the same time, I have full confidence that Mack Rhoades will go find somebody that's a good coach. May not be Kim Mulkey for a while, but there's 4 coaches in all of women's basketball that you could even put in that category. It's like Gino, Kim, Dawn Staley, and maybe one other person. And that's it. That's the list, basically. So, yeah, coaches like that don't grow on trees, but I think at the same time, there's some positives to it. You may not win as much right away, or maybe for the foreseeable future, but I think you can still win at a high clip, and I think you can probably do it with a little bit of less stress for everybody involved. So, and that goes for both sides. And so, best wishes to Kim Mulkey on her new chapter. Like I said, she obviously seemed very happy in her press conference, talking about the food and ripping her mask off and doing all that. Did you see her press conference? Did you see her rip the mask off at the very beginning?
I heard you talking about it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, so basically one of the first things, I didn't watch the whole press conference either. I was while we were doing the show, I was watching little clips of it just to keep an eye on if she had said anything of interest, and there wasn't really. She didn't say much at all about Baylor. So I didn't go back and watch the whole thing. But, yeah, she basically started it off by taking off the mask and just throwing it to the side and let me rip this damn mask off. I got a lot to say. And I just watched Twitter, and I was just like, I bet Mack Rhoades is going, oh, thank God, I don't have to deal with this anymore. That's who's the AD there, the former A&M?
Scott Woodward.
Yeah, Scott Woodward. I was like, that's his problem now, is deal with the mask stuff. But I just found that funny because it was such her way to introduce herself, just throwing my damn mask off. But hey, she's in Baton Rouge now, end of an era, and it is what it is. So Lady Bears and Mack Rhoades will now start a coaching search, and as Nina Davis, who's an assistant at Middle Tennessee, I told her yesterday on the show, it's too bad she's not a bit further down the coaching career path yet. Yeah. Because she's definitely not ready to be a head coach, much less the Lady Bears head coach. But I don't know, in 20 years or so, maybe if the next coach they hire has a Kim-like run, then Nina, maybe she'll be on a staff one day. I don't know, but she's a great young lady, and she said it best, I think, when she said that her degree says Baylor, she's a Lady Bear, and she loves Mulkey and will be rooting for her at LSU. But she's going to be supporting the Baylor program, and she's excited to see who the next head coach will be, and I know a lot of other people are as well. A lot of other former players are as well. We know Cydia Messer is involved. We'll at least get an interview. Longtime assistant under Kim. Bill Brock, longtime assistant under Kim, will also apparently, be interviewed or somehow involved. At least he's not a part of that contingent that headed to Baton Rouge. So it looks like Messer and Brock will get a crack. And then, of course, there will be outside candidates as well. Mack Rhoades, like he has with every search he's done so far, of which there's only been, 2 or 3, I think. But he said it'll be a national search. So we'll see. But, I know there's some names being thrown around. We got a list on the website of a couple of names just early on. And, now it's on to a coaching search.
Yeah, and that's going to be really, I think, cool for Mack Rhoades. He's done a great job, I think, whenever they've gone through coaching searches since he's been at Baylor. So I think he's going to make the right decision. I think he's going to find someone who's a really good candidate for the job. For just personally, I hope it's someone a little bit younger. Not like, 31 or anything like that, but maybe early 40s. I know a name that's been floated out there is Joni Taylor at Georgia. Mm-hmm.
So I'd say almost like she's like the fan favorite at this point.
Yeah, and she's 42, I think. And I just think someone a little bit younger because I like the idea of someone growing into the role, being at Baylor for a long time and having, building those deep roots with the Baylor family. And I think that in a sport like women's basketball, I think that's really important to building that fan base up, especially when you lose a legend like Kim Mulkey. So, again, hoping it's someone a little bit younger. I think Joni Taylor would be a great great fit for Baylor. And I know she's been a name that has been talked about a ton, like you said, maybe a fan favorite. And she actually won the SEC Coach of the Year this year. So she's got a trajectory that's trending up. And I think that would be a great thing for Baylor with all the resources that the Lady Bears have.
Yeah, she's only 42. She played at Alabama. So I do wonder with Mack Rhodes, you got to start. I don't know. He's talked about this before. Is like you don't worry too much about like 10 years from now, like because you really can't.
Right.
But man, it would be nice if they could find somebody who doesn't have like some outside pull before they even take the job. Like Matt Rule already had the NFL waiting. You know what I mean? Like that was already a ticking clock when he took the job. Mulkey, that was about outside of like two schools, Louisiana State and Louisiana Tech, her alma mater, like there wasn't too many places, at least according to her, that she was going to go. And I think that kind of proved out over time. So, and that wasn't, she's been around for so long now, but, just the thought of, I guess when you make the hire, and in women's basketball, there might not be as many cases as this, but you just don't want to be the leapfrog. You don't want to be the launching pad. But I think their program, it's top 3, top 5. So whoever they bring in, yeah, you're looking at them for, to be the next Mulkey, to be here for the next 20 years or so. So I don't know if Alabama would ever be a pull, but she would be a good choice right now. Like you said, good age-wise. She only makes, and I say only because – I wish I only made $575,000. I wish I made take a number off. I'll still take that. But yeah, that's nothing compared to what Kim was making. So money will not be an issue in that regard. We'll see though. But yeah, that's definitely one of the names to pay attention to. So Lady Bears coaching search is on. We'll have Mack Rhodes on the show today. I believe there'll be about his first public comments I think at all, outside of the statement that was released by the school on Sunday, along with Linda Livingstone, to discuss Kim's departure. So that's where we are with the Lady Bears. We'll see what happens here over the next few weeks. I would imagine we're not talking about this search in 2-3 months. I would think that this is something they try to get done.
They need to.
In the next couple weeks, yeah. And hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, they got to find a way to get a coach sooner rather than later. And I know you want to do your due diligence, but I think just from a roster standpoint, you want to make sure that a leader is in there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because I'm sure Texas has already called Alyssa Smith or
For
Georgia
sure.
or whoever. I'm sure every school's already hit her up.
Yeah.
I believe Moon's going to go to LSU with Kim to finish.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
think that's what's going to happen, which is not, too much of a surprise. She's from Louisiana. She's played with Kim for the last 5 years, and she's going to nursing school. So I think Moon's probably going to Baton Rouge, although we'll see. But that would be my bet at this point.
We don't know about Jordan Lewis.
Yeah, I would say that odds are probably low on her coming now because she makes her announcement, and then 2 days later, Mulkey's going to LSU basically, or at least the rumors start. So I wouldn't bank on her probably, unless you can get somebody in here quickly who can convince her. But, yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about is you got to get somebody in here to prevent too much outside recruiting and poaching of your roster. And then, of course, there's always the chance that Kim's going to take some folks. I think that would be kind of a bad look. Yeah. So I don't know that will happen, but I'm saying there's the chance that could happen. And if she took a player, I know that would still leave a sour taste, but who knows?
It depends who it is. But if you take Alyssa Smith, that would suck, but
it's also her job. So it's kind of what you would expect her to do if you're an LSU fan. If you're a Baylor fan, you'd hope for some grace and wouldn't be poaching players from your former school. But who knows, man?
Flip side is whoever Baylor does hire, they might do the same thing.
Yeah.
You never really know. I will say the roster as it is, if they can just hang on to, they had a great surge of those transfers. Kamario McDaniel is one of them. So, they got to keep these girls. they have a good roster next year. If everyone stays, they could be really good. Don't know if that's going to happen. I'm really curious if I do think this hire will be done in the next couple weeks. I don't think it can last too much longer than that.
Yeah, I don't see why it should last any longer than that. We're not talking about the next football hire where you've got, big money agents and all the politicking going on. There's some of that, but it's on a smaller scale. And quite frankly, there's just not as many worthy candidates. The pool that you're picking from is not nearly as large as it might be in some other sports. It's pretty exclusive who's really good and who may be really good, and then who's just everybody else, which is the majority that are just kind of average or whatever. But there we are in women's basketball. So we'll keep you updated. A lot of talk on the website as well. But obviously a major story, and one that I don't know that we'll ever talk about a women's coaching search again as far as basketball goes on this podcast. I mean, we should never talk about it again unless we're doing this in like 30 years. And Grace, in all due respect, I hope we're not. I hope we're evolving somewhat by then. But outside of that, yeah, this should be the next 10, 15, 20-year hire. So end of an era. I don't think she'll need luck, but best wishes to Kim Mulkey for all that she did at Baylor. Somebody put it on Twitter to me pretty well last night. It's like, look, man, she didn't even want to leave La Tech in the first place 20-something years ago, but she came to Baylor. She wins 3 national titles, puts them back on the map, wins all these conference titles, so she did her part, and it is what it is. Now, meanwhile, also this weekend, kind of overshadowed by the discussion on Saturday, was the green and gold game. Spring is over for Baylor football. Dave Aranda had a lengthy interview with Smokey yesterday. At some point, when I can break down that 30-minute chunk of it and I have some time to, I will have an article of some sort or bullet points or something coming out of that. But, yeah, it was the last time we'll probably hear from him for a while. And the Bears kind of go into hibernation, so to speak, as far as publicly for the next few months. And, Grayson, it was not a high-scoring affair or much of an offensive affair at all. It was pretty much dominated by the defense, which is not a surprise. But what were your thoughts on the green and gold game Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, the defense dominated, which was expected. I mean, we all kind of knew the defense was going to be the dominant figure on Saturday. I will say, though, to see the second unit of defense, and really it was the gold team had a lot of just young guys out there playing defense, and they played really well. That was really encouraging because I think we all knew the starters were going to be really good. But to see those younger guys really play well, Devin Neal at safety looked terrific. Devin Lemire looked terrific as well, playing the star position because Lorando Johnson wasn't playing. So Lemire got a chance to go in and play a starting role for the gold team. First play of the game, he had a sack, also had a tackle for loss, a pass breakup. He looked really good. Devin Neal, like I said, looked great as well. Al Walcott came down with an interception. Tyrone M. Brown had an interception on Jacob Zeno as well. You got a flash of Byron Hanspard with an interception on Chapin as well. So lots of turnovers. The defense just looked really poised and dominated the day for sure. Now, as far as on the offensive side, I came away with just still a lot of question marks. I mean, there just frankly are. The offensive line was okay. I would say in the run game, they looked better than they did a year ago. But in the pass protection game, I was not very impressed, especially because the defensive line for Baylor was missing TJ Franklin and Gabe Hall. So, I mean, it wasn't even the full defensive line, and they were really dominating. So, not very encouraged with the offensive line. I still think Baylor's going to add a transfer or two. I think they need to. I would be honestly shocked if they didn't, especially at right tackle. That would be the priority, with a guard being the second priority there. Wide receivers were okay. Nothing really stood out to me. RJ Sneed was probably the best on the day.
Which isn't saying much because none of them did anything.
No,
really.
Sneed really only had a few big catches. He had the one from Bohannon on a long third down across the middle of the field. He had one from Zeno on a 10-yard first down conversion. And then, of course, the last play of the game, he had that 30-yard touchdown from Jacob Zeno as well. So he was okay. Everyone else, it just really wasn't a ton. There were a lot of receptions to tight ends on basically 3-yard gainers, a couple throws to Ebner, who in my opinion was actually the best offensive player overall on the day. Ebner looked so explosive and so comfortable in the offense. And as far as other takeaways, Gary Bohannon, he was the best quarterback on Saturday.
Your boy Zeno struggled, man. I was surprised by that. I don't know what was going on with him. I thought Saturday was going to be like his kind of, I didn't think they were going to name a starting quarterback. I didn't think they were going to walk out of that game and go we've got our guy. But I really did think that if he performed well, there was a chance of them at least exiting spring and kind of feeling like, I think we know. And instead, I think they're walking out of spring and they're going, we still have no idea.
Yeah.
He might slightly lead in the overall competition or something, but Gary was clearly better than him. I mean, I'm not trying to bag on Jacob, but he's had a really rough day until the very end, that last throw. But that was the highlight, was the very last play of the scrimmage. And I thought Gary, was the number one guy. Shapen was probably the number two, although he's got to be careful with the football. There's things you like about him, but there's also those are the same exact things that could make you hate him, as far as like the arm talent and things like that. It's like it could be really beneficial, but also hurt you if you're not careful. So yeah, I was hoping Jacob would have had a little bit better of a day, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, he did not have a good day. But I see everyone saying Shapen was the second best quarterback, but I don't really know what that's really from. There weren't a lot of explosive plays from him. He hit offensive linemen in the back of the head twice.
I think it's more or less like people saw him complete a couple of passes, whereas with Jacob, I don't know. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think like in general, maybe it wasn't that Shapen was better. It was just that Jacob really wasn't very good.
No, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
He for sure wasn't. I just didn't think Shapen was very good either.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to be number
was,
two. And
I guess. But yeah, overall.
And it wasn't Drones either. So.
No. He's not ready yet. We've talked about this. He's just not ready yet, and that's okay.
Yeah.
He's a true freshman. He's not ready yet. Give him time. He's very skilled, very big. I mean, he's an imposing dude. But he's not ready to lead this football team yet, in my opinion. Gary was great. I mean, Gary moved the ball well. Gary ran the system. You could see him in the read options really excel. I mean, you can see his speed, his power, and he looked very good from that standpoint. And there was a confidence about him and the entire offense when he was out there. So, yeah, he won the day for sure. On the flip side, something that I find interesting, and yes, aside from the bad day, the 2 interceptions, which were terrible, there was still only one throwing touchdown the entire day, and there were only 2 deep shots thrown, and both of them were thrown, and all 3 of those situations were thrown by Jacob Zeno. So what I'm trying to say by that is I think the offense for Gary is going to obviously be very much tailored around the run game. And very safe running game with a few intermediate throws here and there. But there weren't deep shots. There weren't big, high-risk chunk plays that were thrown. It was very just methodical, which can work for sure. But I just think that's the style of offense that will be ran. It was the same thing for Shapen. He didn't take any shots deep either. It was a lot of speed option, a lot of read option, a lot of short get the ball out throws. For Zeno, they did take the shot early to Tyquan Thornton on a ball that was, I think, just thrown right and maybe slightly short. It was. I don't know. It looked more right. I couldn't tell from the field exactly how far, which way it was early on in the game. And then, of course, the deep shot to R.J. Sneed for the touchdown were really the only throws over 30 yards that I saw the entire day.
I think they were intentionally vanilla. And I think also it was just that's where the quarterbacks are at this point. Yeah. I don't think any of them are ready to – I think there's a long way to go for all of them. I don't think there's a clear-cut quarterback favorite. I think the offensive line's going to have to add a couple of guys, and even Aranda's kind of made that clear now. And I know you said that, but he said that on Saturday, and I think kind of repeated it with Mulkey. So yeah, I would expect a couple more transfers or at least one, and hopefully that's what it'll take to kind of get this thing going offensive line-wise. But again, you just hate to have to keep going to the portal every offseason to try to find a couple guys to complete the puzzle. It's like at some point you just have no choice. If like you ever, and I'm not talking to the current staff when I'm saying all this, I'm just speaking out loud because, they know what they're doing. But at some point you can't have to rely on the transfer portal to fix your issues. And it's one thing if there's like one issue. So, yeah, go and get a guy or a couple of guys, and that should be easy to fix that issue. But when you got multiple issues, you can't go find 5 new offensive linemen in the portal. You just can't. And you can't especially do that like now and then have them ready for August and expect it to be a really good offense. And so it's going to be all about development. They're going to have to hit on some of these young offensive line recruits because they have just whiffed over and over. And I know – part of that was they just had to throw offers out there and just get bodies on campus. We've discussed this multiple times, but it's clear that's also what happened, and that's why a lot of them washed out or just haven't even had any impact in 2-3 years. So, yeah, man, they didn't have numbers or much talent, and then they had numbers and a tiny bit of talent, and now they've still got numbers, but they need more talent. And, these next few months will be important, but, yeah, they're going to have to go to the portal again. And then, hopefully by next year, they've got maybe somebody through the portal that can stick around for more than just a year, because that doesn't really help you a ton. I mean, it helps you through the season, but like we saw with Jake Burton last year, is like if you don't have the full puzzle, though, it doesn't really make much of a difference, because I couldn't tell you that he was on the team last year or not. The offensive line sucked either way. So, yeah, Mateos and Grimes got a big challenge ahead of them, and this thing's like year 5 of the rebuild, and it looks better, but it's just still so far away from what you'd like it to look like.
Yeah, and I think a big issue with it is, for me, I really am looking at the right tackle position. I think that is the biggest area of weakness, and the problem is that Gavin Byers and Elijah Ellis, in my opinion, are the 2 best candidates to play that position, and I think they're both a year away. And so that's where it's like you have to take a shot on the portal if those guys aren't quite ready yet. And, if they are, then maybe they just decide, we're just going to go into the season with these guys. But I do not see that happening at all. They are going to
they're
get
going
in
to
the
add
portal.
somebody. Yeah.
They're going to. I think they're going to add 2 guys. I really do. Whether that's a JUCO and a transfer or 2 transfers, I just think they need more talent. And, yeah, they have bodies, but I don't know if those bodies are able to really make an impact. So, it's going to be an interesting offseason, interesting summer as they get ready for summer, because they're going to want someone on campus when summer 1 starts, the first school session during the summer. So we'll see. Lots to figure out there. But the good news is the defense is dominant. The defense is in a very good place right now.
And we probably think the offensive line is way worse than it actually is just because of who they're playing. But, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and Siaki Ika, Apu, He's a beast. We continue to see that and hear that. He just is a difference maker for them. I think once they get TJ Franklin and Gabe Hall back, they'll really reach their peak potential. Garmin Randolph is taking massive steps in the right direction. I really like the way he's playing, but it's deeper than that. I mean, Chidi Obanaya looked good. Josh Landry played solid. Rob Solon got in there and got a sack from what I saw. Braden Utley, who I think is still a walk-on, he continues to play well. So they have some depth built in there. We already know what the linebacker position is going to look like when Terrell Bernard's back. That's going to be an area of just absolute strength for this team. And defensive backs continue to impress me. Like I said, young guys playing well. When you look at Al Walcott, Devin Neal, and Devin Lemire, you talk about those guys, but you're not even mentioning Lorando Johnson, who by all reports had a big spring as well, to go along with the starters, Christian Morgan, JT Woods, Raleigh Tejada, Kalen Barnes, who had the strip on Jared Atkinson. I mean, this is a deep group, and it just continues to get deeper, and I think that they're poised to have a really, really good defense under Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts.
Yeah, if the defense isn't good this year, then I don't know if I need to cover football anymore, because they sure appear to be pretty dang good.
And they're going to be horrible if they're not good.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, if they're not good, then they are, though. We know they are. But, yeah, I mean, the offense, I'm not basing everything off the spring game. I mean, quite frankly, they were not attempting to try to win that game offensively. I mean, as you said, there was like 2 passes beyond like 15 yards thrown by most of the quarterbacks. So not as though they were just, going out there running and gunning and trying to tear the field up. But they were trying to still make positive progress, and a lot of times they failed in that effort because the defense swallowed them up in the backfield or on the edges or whatever. But there were a few signs of some flash and maybe what this team will be capable of. But, yeah, I mean, for the 5th year in a row, it'll all depend on the offensive line. I know that's every year, really, but, like, you know what I mean when I say that in regards to Baylor. It's like, we'll see. We'll see. But I thought it was a very positive spring overall. I thought they got a lot of good work in based on, as best as I can tell. And, this defense should be pretty special, but we will have to wait a bit longer for the quarterback to be named. We'll probably be waiting for another 3 months. We'll probably be waiting until till the week or two before the first game. Now at this point, because that's when they'll start rolling out depth charts. So, going to be waiting a while to hear that starting quarterback name because nobody by the end of it was the clear favorite in any way, shape, or form. You weren't coming out of the spring game going like, that's the guy.
Not at all.
Not a single person could have left the stadium saying that. So,
and not a single person really, I think, could come out of there feeling really confident about the offense as a whole. And kind of, I just think, like you said, they need more time. They need more seasoning. And it's interesting. In the spring game, the guy who's gotten the most reps had the best day. So I found that to be interesting as well. In a game setting where, Gary has had the most opportunities in the past and the most experience, for him to come out and play well, I think that's a good sign. That shows his experience has paid off. But like you said, it's one game. It's one spring game.
Yeah, I'm not trying to overrate the spring game.
And there were 20-something practices. And we don't know how many of those practices were won by other guys. I will say, coming into that game, I think everyone felt like Jacob Zeno had the best spring. And then by the end of it, you're going, Gary had the best spring game. So does that make up for what happened all spring? I don't know. We're going to have to find out. But I agree with you. We're probably not going to know who the starter is till the first game because after watching that, these guys need more competition. But I still stand by the fact that I think Gary and Jacob are the two guys. I really do. I came away from that game thinking that those were the two guys that I think one of them will be the starter.
Yeah, Shapen's a little bit raw still, and Drones is very raw. Drones is not going to see the field much at all this year. Outside of having to, and knock on wood, that doesn't happen because he's not ready for it yet. He'll be good in time, but it's not his time right now. He needs to breathe a little bit and just kind of blossom, and he'll be good in the long run. He really will be, and hopefully by the time he is the man, that offensive line has been rebuilt at that point. 7 years after the rebuild started, will probably be, when he gets that call. But, not trying to be Debbie Downer. It's just there wasn't a lot to write home about. I mean, the defense dominated. The offense did little to nothing, quite frankly. There was a couple of plays here and there, but, the biggest offensive play of the game was the last play of the game. So, I mean, there's just not much to say, quite frankly.
Lots of tight end involvement. I'll mention that. Ben Sims didn't even play, and I would still say, I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I bet Drake Dabney had 4 or 5 catches before he exited the game with an injury. I would bet Christoph Henley probably had 3 catches. Tyler Henderson had 2 or 3 catches. The tight ends got work, so I found that to be interesting. The 2 tight end sets definitely did happen as well. So, it's clear that Grimes is going to make that an emphasis. So that was definitely one thing that I wanted to note. Abram Smith playing running back. He played well, showed some flashes. Tay McWilliams and Jonah White did not play in the game, so the depth was kind of lacking there. It was really just Quaylen, Abram, and Treston Ebner. And like I said, Ebner, in my opinion, was the best offensive player on the day. So some good stuff, some negative stuff, but overall, I will say I think this spring was very productive, and I actually like where this team is currently if they could, again, just figure out the offensive line, the quarterback position.
Yeah, and that's, again, if like a current member of the coaching staff was listening to this or something and was like, oh, God, I don't like to talk about it over and over again. I really don't, but it's just like it's not even what is the phrase, the elephant in the room. It's like, it's just not. It's the elephant greets you at the front door and says, like, hey, welcome back. And, it's been like 5 years, dude. It's been literally 5 years of this offensive line rebuild. And that's why it's frustrating, but I'm not at all, assigning blame to this staff. They're doing the best they can. I think the offensive line has gotten better this spring. I think by the time fall hits and they add a couple guys, they'll be even further better. Are they anywhere close to being dominant? No, that's going to take a lot longer. But hopefully they're at least on the track this time, unlike years 1 through 5 of the rebuild where, the people involved are gone for the most part, or not even coaching the position anymore, or not even on the team anymore. Hopefully this actually is the ball rolling forward and not just spinning in place and being deceiving to the eye. So if they can get that squared away, and you still have the issue at quarterback as far as who the guy will be and how good that guy will be, but he'll be a lot better if he can get some blocking, that's for sure.
No doubt.
recruiting wise, coming out of the spring game. The spring game was great. It was fine. It was a spring game. It wasn't like a big, huge, to do. I think, hell, as many people in the stands were probably talking about the Mulkey rumors at that point as they were about the game. But, the defense was a lot of fun to watch. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. I think the team's better than when they started, several weeks ago. And now we'll check in on them again, periodically. But anything to note recruiting-wise as far as the spring game weekend goes?
Yeah, I mean, just lots of visitors is the main takeaway. I'm going to have plenty of notes up throughout the rest of this week kind of on player reactions and just kind of overall thoughts. But from what I've heard, just kind of summary-wise, these guys had a great time. A lot of guys made the effort to come to Baylor, which I think is a big deal. Most of the commits were there, getting to watch the team in person. I know the tight ends enjoyed the involvement, watching the other tight ends get receptions on the team. The offensive line guys were excited, feel like they could come in and make a difference. So that was good to see. And, of course, the defensive guys ecstatic with what they saw. I mean, I think all these guys see an opportunity to come to Baylor and make plays, force turnovers, and become really, really good football players. So that was kind of the overall kind of thoughts that I got. There were over 30 guys, whether it be signees, commits, or just uncommitted prospects at the game. And remember, they don't even get to see the coaches or talk to the coaches. So these are guys just coming just because they want to see Baylor play. So, yeah, really cool stuff. Overall, a great weekend for the staff in this regard. They really need to get guys on campus. They were able to do that and really get a good head start in 2023 and continue to build great connections in the 2022 class. So anytime you can get guys on campus, it's a big deal. And June will be the next official visits, or the official visit dates that are going to be coming up. The 18th and the 25th are the two dates set in stone. I also think, like I've mentioned, they're probably going to have a junior day, most likely sometime in July, I would think. So that's kind of where we're at on that end.
All right, so there's football recruiting. Meanwhile, basketball recruiting, Scott Drew and staff added a player over the last few days, James Akinjo. He is from Arizona and was the Wildcats' leading scorer last season. He is on his third school now, as he actually started his career at Georgetown. And, I welcome him to Baylor. I also don't like guys being on their third school in like 4 years or 5 years. I hate that, and I think that's going to be a new norm, unfortunately. I don't know how much we'll recognize college athletics in about 10 years if they don't get some true leadership in that chair and just basically do away with the NCAA entirely. But who knows? They might actually even open it up further. The NCAA might be the only thing even keeping it resembling college athletics in a way. But, for whatever reason, he's bounced around a little bit. He's now at Baylor and obviously was very important to, Arizona last year. Your thoughts on James Akinjo joining the Baylor basketball team?
Yeah, so he played with Mac McClung there at Georgetown. They played on the same team together. So that was a very ball-dominant team right there. A lot of those two guys.
No kidding.
Putting the shots
5 on 2.
Yeah, so interesting note there. But, yeah, he's about 6'1". He gives them kind of similar to what they had this year, where you're able to play with 2 point guards, where you can have him and Adam Flagler be the primary ball handler. He's a guy who I think the exciting part about him is in his 3 seasons, he has an average less than 13.5 points per game. So you're getting immediate impact scoring. That is 100% going to happen. He is not going to score less than 13 points per game, in my opinion, at Baylor because he's proven it throughout his career. I do think he's going to shoot better quality of shots at Baylor. At Arizona and Georgetown, his field goal percentage is at 37%. This is a guy who definitely takes a lot of shots, averages nearly 12 shots a game. I think that number can stay the same, but I think he's going to get easier looks on a better team. He really needs to improve finishing at the rim. That is an area definitely they needs to improve on. And if you remember watching Baylor this past year, anytime they got in the lane, all of them were so good with floaters and finishing in close there. So he's going to definitely need to get better at that. But some huge positives with him. He averaged 5.5 assists last year as a career 5 assists guy. So he can pass the ball, distribute, much like Davion Mitchell did this past year. Minimal impact on rebounds, but 81% free throw shooter, big plus there. And then also nearly a 40% three-point shooter. So a lot to like about him on the offensive end. My biggest question mark for him is going to be the defensive end. I do think that Baylor's coaching staff will get him locked in on that end, but I do think it's an area that he definitely needs to continue to grow and work on. But huge pickup. I mean, I don't want to undersell this because he is absolutely what they needed. They needed a guard who could come in and score immediately and be an impact guy, and they got it. So to have him and Flagler as your backcourt guys, I mean, that is going to be a fun duo.
How is he defensively?
Not great.
Okay.
Not
well,
great.
That's going to be something that he's going to have to change in a short amount of time.
And I know
to an extent.
On Smokey's interview, he thinks that he is a good defender. And I'm not saying he's a bad defender, but I think he needs to get better. If you want to win a national championship, you need to play defense more similar to how Baylor did this past year. He will not be Davion Mitchell on that end, but I do think he can be serviceable enough to where you're not hiding him by any means. But I do think that it's an area that he can improve on. And I think that's a big team defense concept that I don't think Baylor will have too big of an issue teaching.
Okay, so James Akinjo, now a member of the Baylor basketball team. Elsewhere, looking at some other notes, and I'm sure they'll continue to scour the transfer portal. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like, a bunch more. Obviously, there's limited room. So there's one spot that's now been taken up, and they probably have a couple of others at this point.
They have one spot.
Yeah, so we'll see who that might be. Maybe they keep it open to stay flexible and there's all sorts of ways. I mean, this is why now people are hiring guys to just try to figure out the transfer portal. So I'm sure there's some thoughts behind the scenes of, hey, do we feel like we can get this guy soon, or are we in the running for these guys? And possibly even like, hey, maybe we should hold on to this thing for a little while and wait to see kind of how, once the summer hits, if the transfer portal gets active again, with the semester coming to a close or whatever the case may be. But, yeah, they got about a spot left, so we will see. But Akinjo, now the newest member of the Baylor men's basketball team. Meanwhile, Baylor men's tennis, your Big 12 tournament champions. They shared, a three-way tie for the regular season title. Boo. I mean, that's fine. It's great. Like, yes, technically Big 12 regular season champs, but three-way ties are just that's just garbage. So, I mean, it is, dude. You can't have 3 first-place winners. Like, that's stupid. But they did go and leave no doubt yesterday as they took home the Big 12 tournament championship, and pesky Texas just beat their backsides 4-0. Win, no doubter, at the Hurd Tennis Center, and they are your Big 12 tournament champions, Grayson, and now have a couple weeks until, nationals. And Michael Woodson's still wearing that interim tag. I doubt he's going to be wearing it for much longer. I think he'll be probably, sooner than later named the full-time head tennis coach. But, in the meantime, he's wearing that interim tag pretty proudly, winning Big 12 titles. So your thoughts?
Yeah, and they're going to be a top 3 team when the NCAA tournament bracket is released. Hopefully top 2 after winning the Big 12 tournament.
He thought they might get one.
The 1?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if they're able to get that, I haven't seen what the team in front of them did. I don't even know who's ranked number 1 to be fair. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what seed they get. These are huge wins because TCU and Texas not only are ranked very high, they were also the 2 teams that shared the title with Baylor in the regular season. So they were happy to knock both of them off and leave no doubt. Again, very happy for this program, happy for Michael Woodson. And yeah, he's going to be hired as the full-time guy. I would be shocked if that's not announced right after the season.
Yeah, and I know they've got a good little coaching staff there as well. So we'll see. We'll talk to Mac Rhodes later today. We're not going to ask him about the interim and all of that. I mean, I'm sure Smokey probably will in some joking way that's actually serious. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's going to get taken care of pretty quickly. So congrats. I mean, that's a big deal, man, when you start adding up. Like those may not get the shine of football, but, man, those titles add up. And the athletic department right now, I mean, people are in, some are in mourning over Mulkey, but you look around at everywhere else, and it's like, I mean, if football can just pick up the slack a little bit, there's not really much of a weakness in this athletic department, in the grand scheme of things. So big win there for Baylor men's tennis. Baylor baseball, meanwhile, has been on a nice little tear here as of late. They go win their first series in Lubbock in over 10 years this past weekend, taking 2 out of 3 from, number 5 Texas Tech. And that's, again, the first series win out there in over 10 years. They're starting to get a little hot, and Grayson, that was a big series win for them.
Yeah, Texas Tech was 20-2 at home on the season. Now they're 21-4 as Baylor doubled their losses as the Bears went into Lubbock and got a huge series win, and they really dominated. I mean, they won the first one 12-4 and the last one 13-3, and that second game they lost 4-1, but really that game was really tight all the way until the end. Tech was able to add a few runs late, but Baylor left no doubt here. They're up to 31 in the RPI, squarely in the NCAA tournament field, but they need to do more. I mean, you don't want to just barely get in and then give yourself a 3 seed at the toughest, regional you could possibly go to. They want to find a way to move up, possibly get up to that 2 seed area. That would be ideal. And they do have, 3 very winnable series, with the road contest against Oklahoma State being the most difficult. But yeah, this team's peaking at the right time. Their pitching staff really has a lot of confidence right now. Tyler Thomas continues to pitch well. Hayden Kettler continue to do his thing. I mean, this is just a really good group that it seems like are finally kind of reaching the expectations that I think a lot of Baylor fans had for them coming into the season.
Yeah, they've been on a nice run. They got a lot of talent. It's just, I don't know, kind of just a soft start, and they're, starting to really turn a corner here. So going out and getting that series win, that was huge. I mean, that's a big time series win to go and get. When you think about it being 10+ years since they have done that, I mean, that's just kind of hard to imagine. Then again, not, because Texas Tech has been really good, but Baylor's had their teams too. And so that goes to show you just how difficult it's been, but they got it done this weekend. So the next time a team goes and does it, it'll be the first time since 2021 that they've won a series out in Lubbock. But yeah, they're in the mix for the postseason right now. So just keep it going and try to finish this bad boy on out. But shout out to Steve Rodriguez and company, because they are very much in the mix right now. Meanwhile, I think we kind of hit on most every note, Baylor athletics-wise. We've got a few questions in the mailbag this week, and we'll see if we can get through them all. If we can't, we can't. I mean, it's the way it's going to be. We'll try and save some for next week, but maybe we get to all of them. But just know that we will always attempt to try to get to every question, but it is a timing issue. We've got pretty much exactly 1 hour for this show. So if there are other things like Mulkey leaving for LSU, sorry, that's more important than your question on a week like this. But let's get to those that we can get to for this week. Bear Hug starts us off. Where do you think the new basketball arena should go, and will there be enough parking?
I think somewhere downtown, and I don't think there will be an issue with parking. I think Baylor's going to figure all of those things out when they do build the stadium. But I think that somewhere right across the highway would kind of be the most ideal fit. I think people have talked about like Robinson Tower area as a possibility. But yeah, I think they could do a great job with it. And I'm not concerned about parking as long as it's not built in the Farrell Center parking lot, because then parking would be a big issue.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be possible, and I haven't kept real close tabs on like all the details that Ashley's passed along or whatever, just because there's just so many minor notes on the arena itself, and it's such a long process. And I know there's been so much back and forth on the location and stuff. So I've kind of just sort of stepped away from it. And next major update, let me know. But it would be great if they could clean off that big electric grid across from McLean Stadium. That's just the biggest eyesore on the entrance to Waco, basically, and just wipe that sucker off the map somehow and place the arena there. That would be great. It'd be right across from McLean, but. It's just I was in the press box for the first time in about a year and a half this past weekend, and McLean's got a great view of downtown, so to speak, but there's this electrical grid just right there, and it's just so ugly. It's so ugly. But yeah, I don't know exactly where it's going to go, and quite frankly, I mean, as long as it's in a spot that people can get in and out of relatively quickly, as long as it's not too far away from campus. and there's stuff around, and it's not going to cause major traffic issues and clog everything up and just be a pain in the backside, then I don't care where it goes. I really don't see the benefit to cramming it in that Farrell Center parking lot. And I know they wouldn't necessarily be cramming it, but they kind of would. Yeah. And I didn't think the Farrell Center was a really great place to get in and out of ever. I've always felt like it's kind of a pain in the butt to go to the Farrell Center when you got the back road technically, but really it's one road in and one road out almost. You know what I mean? And it's just it's not the easiest place to get to when there's a big game. But then again, that's arenas and big games. It's kind of the way it's supposed to be. But I'm not diehard about it being on campus like Kim may have been or like some others are. I mean, do you have a preference?
I'd rather it be downtown.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd much rather. Yeah.
I want it to be wherever it would be the best, and I don't know what that would be, but I'm not opposed to it being downtown at all. So if that's what they go with, and it looks like they probably will, then that's what they'll go with. All right. Thank you, Bear Hug. And yes, I would imagine there will be enough parking wherever they put in arena. Vaughn 53 watching the spring game. It seemed as if Zeno has a more talented arm than Gary, but the offense looks so much better with Gary in it. A power run game with Abrams seemed to open up lanes for receivers, allow Tristan to make plays his way. And he didn't turn the ball over. Question is, did it change your view of the quarterback battle moving forward?
No. I still think I personally, I just believe that it is going to be Jacob Zeno at the end of the day. I think he opens up things for the offense. Kind of like you're saying, you think that the power run game opened up things for the offense. I think the ability to throw the ball deep opens up things in this offense that I simply don't know if – I think we saw it, that I don't believe that Gary and Chapin are going to be thrown out there to do. Take shots deep. But I will say it did change my view of kind of where Gary is in this battle. And I do think that there's a chance that even if Jacob is the starter, that Gary will have some sort of role in this offense. I think you saw it on Saturday that there are things that he can do that could help this offense a little bit. And I could honestly see both playing, but I still think that Jacob will be the guy.
If Gary can bring the arm accuracy and things like that along, he might be the heavy favorite just because of the running ability and his style in doing that, but he can't be one-dimensional, and that's the thing is how much of a threat could he really be throwing the football. But he looked the best to end the spring. I thought Zeno was probably the best looking throughout, just the portions that we got to watch, and I don't think that anybody's close to being named the starter right now. Thank you, Vaughn. Alpha Needle, if you make the assumption that Grant Taft never came to Baylor, does Baylor stay in the Southwest Conference? If we're not in the Southwest Conference, do we get into the Big 12? What in the world are you on right now, Alpha Needle? Are you just doubting existence at this point? So I'm not making any of these assumptions because why would I? But so Grant Taft never comes to Baylor. Does Baylor stay in the Southwest Conference?
Probably.
I'm not a Southwest Conference guy, so I don't recall kind of how close that may or may not have been. If we're not in the Southwest Conference, do we get into the Big 12? Probably not. Why would you be considered for it? Does Art Browse come to Baylor?
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Why not? Does Scott Drew come to Baylor?
Sure, why not?
Look at the conditions he came to Baylor under. Yeah. If your question's if they don't get to the Big 12, I don't know, dude. I don't know. That's such a domino effect. Literally, there's 10 things that could shoot off of even any one of those instances that create 5 different outcomes.
I think it's more likely Scott still goes to Baylor because you're seeing the lower, Houston still having success, and they're not in a Power 5 conference.
So Alpha says all those things to say, connecting the dots, without Grant Taft, do we have any of the major success we've seen the past 10 years in football, men's basketball, women's basketball, or do you believe this all would have happened anyhow? I'm not giving Grant Taft credit for all the success going on right now and in the last 10 years.
I'm definitely not doing that.
Dude, he did a phenomenal job. He's an all-time Baylor legend and all that, but while I get what you're saying, I think it's a bit of a stretch, just personally. I think it's a bit of a stretch to connect the dots from the Southwest Conference days and what could have happened in Browse and Drew and I don't know, man. I think you're overthinking it a little bit. So yes, I do think without Grant Taft, they still have some major success. And lastly, if you believe Taft was the key, which I don't, to the start of that success, where is Baylor in 2021 if he hadn't come? Similar level to SMU, SFA, and Abilene Christian. I get, so basically if Grant Taft hadn't been successful when he was, Baylor's not successful in
anything
basically, in any sport, and doesn't get into probably doesn't get into other conferences. And so, like, where's Baylor in 2021 if Grant Taft hadn't come to school? Dude, I have no idea. Maybe they're an SMU, SFA, Abilene Christian, but, we saw with them getting to the Big 12, that wasn't Grant Taft.
No.
That was a politician that got him in the Big 12. So Grant Taft's a legend, but there's too many hoops for me.
Yeah, and you can play this game all day with a lot of teams in the Big 12. I mean, look at TCU.
If Barry Switzer never leaves Oklahoma, are they the new Alabama?
Right.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, there's a lot of those what-if type things and who could get in the Big 12. But, yeah, I'm not giving all the credit to Grant Taft. He was just a part of what Baylor's built.
Yeah, he's a major part. And Alpha, I'm having fun with you. I appreciate the question, but yeah, I'm just not going to make all those connections to prop up Grant Taft or to just praise him. Coach DeBroker, after the spring game, what's your win-loss record for 2021?
8-4, leaning more towards 9-3 than 7-5, but 8-4.
I'm leaning more towards 7-5.
Okay.
Grafted into Baylor Nation, which is a new name, and appreciate you asking a question. In men's basketball, what's the net effect of the transfer portal on the lower level programs? Is the transfer portal making the rich get richer and the poor get poorer by allowing good players to leave lower level programs to join contenders? Or is it a level playing field by allowing excellent players to leave the top tier programs and go to lower level programs in order to get more playing time?
Well, I think that the bigger programs have figured out the portal now, that they have to use it. I mean, you're seeing it all over the country. So it's definitely going to help those bigger programs, but it's also going to help the lower level programs when a big time player leaves. I would say that it helps Power 5 programs who have momentum more than anyone else. So I think the transfer portal, for instance, is helping Texas immensely because they have momentum right now with Chris Beard. I'd say it helped Baylor immensely because they have momentum with winning the championship and with Scott Drew. So I think it helps the programs that are on the rise that maybe aren't quite blue bloods, if that makes sense. It helps those kind of in-between teams get to the level where they can compete for a national championship. Helps them the most. It's going to help blue bloods as they're going to take guys from lower-level programs who are very good, of course. But, yeah, there's still a little bit of a benefit for those lower-level programs who could land guys that bounce back, that go to a Power 5 aren't quite good enough for what they were hyped to be. They bounce back, and they're really good for a lower-level team. So, yeah, I think it's kind of just a net just kind of nothing. I think everyone benefits some and loses some.
All right. So thank you for the question from Grafted into Baylor Nation. And I think that's the first time you've asked a question. Maybe not. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting a previous time. But if it is the first time asking a question, then we're going to end on a first-time question because we're out of time. And Joe Bear, Zewatanejo Bear, who really just had a comment, but BearMace.Crow, I know you guys have questions, but we simply have a heart out. So we got to head out this week. And Grayson, if you want to copy and paste, and we'll save those for next week. And we shouldn't have a women's basketball, departure to talk about. So it's been real fun and a real fast hour, but we simply have to go. So we do appreciate the questions we were able to get to. And again, for those that we didn't get to, we will get to those next week. So just remain patient, and we will address that. I want to thank our sponsors, WellMed Medical Management and USMD Health System. Also, Burt Colchin Ford in Waco since 1936. Thank you to Armstrong Sims. Grayson, safe travels, and we'll talk to you next week. And we will talk to you next week. For Grayson and Armstrong, I'm Craig Smoke, and this has been the Bearcast on SicEm365.com.